money supply reports and such, the average person will look at that and say, geez, this is just too complex for me, I'm out of it, we'll let the experts run the show. That is actually by design, that the big governments and the multinational banks prefer that money be such an abstract concept to people, because then they won't bother to ask what happened to it when it gets ruined. Money is nothing more than a good. That's all it is. Money is simply a medium of exchange. Money is a good, just like a horse is a good, just like a bottle of Coke is a good.
Right.
And if you look at traditionally how money evolved, money is not a creation of government. It's not a creation of the state. Money is something that the state has always sought to take over from the free market.
Correct.
And monopolize. The history of trade indicates that from the earliest days in any local society, you would see trade, that people would begin to specialize somewhat and divide their labor and then trade with others. Because if you had to do everything that you needed, if you had to build everything you needed,
right,
we would live in a prehistoric economy.
Right. Not even the Amish are able to get their own iron.
Absolutely. So if in a small community, I raise chickens, and you make shoes, and a third person builds lanterns, okay, what we would do is you have an asymmetry of values when there's a trade wanting to take place. I've got chickens, I want a pair of shoes, you don't have any need for chickens, right? So then you tell me, sorry, no deal, I don't need any chickens.
Right.
And I say, well, let me go over to Dan then and see if I can trade him a few chickens for a lantern. And you say, yeah, I'll take a lantern for a pair of shoes. You see the massive inefficiency of such transactions.
Correct. Yes.
So
barter.
So what happens is that in trade, people tend to identify a good that they call a medium of exchange, where it kind of becomes traded in and of its value in trade. An example would be, there have been examples of economies in the past where butter became almost like a money, like a currency, a medium of exchange, because there are several qualifications for what makes a good money, and obviously butter fails the test in many ways.
Right, it's not.
Divisibility. It's got to, you've got to be able to trade it in bigger quantities all the way down to very small quantities.
Yes.
It's got to have durability, that it can last. It's got to be scarce. Butter isn't exactly scarce. If butter's money, why wouldn't the incentive would be for any of us that could had the means to get a cow, make our own money, right?
Yeah.
There are several tests for what makes a good currency, but throughout centuries, thousands of years of trade, gold and silver have emerged as standards for medium of exchange.
Okay, across Europe and Asia, possibly down into North Africa. I'm not sure what happens in North America. The Indians used shells,
and
cowrie shells, I believe, and that sort of thing.
Right, and again, if we apply the test, we can see that shells don't make a great currency because of the scarcity issue. Anybody who can just go spend all of his time looking for these certain shells increases his wealth, and then by doing so, is able to exchange with someone who is producing without having produced anything himself.
Right. But the fellow who's mining gold, is he doing anything except producing more money?
That is one other characteristic that we look at when we determine whether something makes a viable medium of exchange. It has to have value other than just being money. If its only value is as money, then it presents those problems. Mm-hmm. However, gold has great demand and many uses in jewelry, ornamentals, electronics, and such. So that is one of the tests that again, gold and silver both meet, is that they have value outside of just
silver used to be used in photography and lost that. That was a big use of silver.
Right.
Silver is also used in medicine as an example, silverdine and that sort of thing.
Right. So if we keep it simple and look at money as nothing other than a medium of exchange, and money is an emergent property of free people, free to do what they want, and exchanging their labor or their products with others. That's, the money becomes an emergent property of that. And what history shows is that governments have always, since the beginning of time, have sought to get control of that money. And you might ask, why would a government want to get control of money? If you and I are exchanging in gold or silver,
right,
and within this region, that's the norm. If you've got gold or you've got silver, you can get whatever you want because anybody's willing to accept it. The king, for example, is going to then, he's going to start taking in all of the gold and silver and stamping it into coins with his head on them.
Right.
And then he will pass a law that says there will be no trade in gold or silver unless it's in one of my coins with my head on it.
Right, which I will mark up.
Okay. And you look at what's his real interest in doing that? Well, his interest is when he starts to circulate these coins, okay, and now everybody's using them, and as they come back through his central bank, he begins to clip the corners. Okay, he starts taking some of the gold off the coins. He devalues the coin itself, but the coin has become the medium of exchange, not the gold. Actually, the gold, you're not allowed to exchange in gold anymore in any form you want. It has to be in these coins. So he starts to skim off the top of those coins, right? So as he takes more off it, he can then spend more. He creates and he mints it into more coins, and there you have the beginning of the inflation story, right?
Right.
History is replete with examples of kings and such employing the smartest people in the world in alchemy, right?
Right.
They wanted them to be able to turn iron into gold or lead into gold or whatever they could, and that was their motivation. If the king can print all of the money, make all of the money he wants, he has unlimited power. They would then debase the coins, right? Add zinc to them and such to take the metal content out. So all of that is devaluation of the money, and it is the definition of inflation. The simplest definition of inflation, and people are 90% of the people are wrong on this. They think that inflation is a rise in prices.
Yes.
Inflation is an increase in the money supply. When the money supply increases, money as a good is now out there in higher quantity competing for the same amount of goods that were there before. So as there's an awful lot more chickens available to trade, okay, in our barter economy that I set up there, if the chicken supply just gets huge to where there's more chickens than anybody wants or would eat or use in a year, they're going to want a lot more chickens for their lantern, or there'll be some point at which there'll be a point of diminishing return there. That is the rise in prices. The rise in price is a result of the inflation, the increase in money supply.
Yes. The Romans, by the way, debased their currency by adding base metals.
Sure.
And they did this continuously, but the Roman Empire lasted for 600 years.
Sure.
So they didn't do too badly. I mean, given
times were different. That empire also lasted by conquest, by sacking the wealth of neighboring peoples. Go out and sack their wealth, and then instill some puppet regime there, call it a republic, and bring the wealth back home, and use the bread and circuses to keep the people happy and sated.
Right.
That's the life cycle of it.
So it was more of a rapacious kind of time, which